Which NFL teams are trending up and which are trending down? And is Davante Adams on his way out of Las Vegas? Hey everyone, welcome into NFL This Week. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Postmedia's Paul Chapman. And Paul, maybe not so many crazy upsets this week, but still a lot of interesting news in and around the National Football League. Only two teams remaining that are undefeated. And of course, they are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Minnesota Vikings. But when we look at the teams that you think are trending in the right direction right now, which are the teams that top your list?
Well, you're right, Rob. I mean, first of all, you can't ignore the fact that those two undefeated teams are trending up, but they've been going that way since the start of the year. I still look at Kansas City finding ways to win when maybe they haven't played that great, also suffering from some injuries, so we'll see where that goes. Minnesota just looks like a juggernaut the way Sam Darnold's playing. But we've known that really since week one. If you look at teams now that we have a better sample size, the Ravens started 0-2, and they were heading into Dallas, and it looked like it might be like, all those free agent losses really going to damage the Ravens? Well, now they're 2-2, two massive wins going in Dallas and beating the previously undefeated Buffalo Bills. But the biggest thing is their big free agent acquisition, Derrick Henry, has looked like an absolute beast. Now, they got a massive divisional game this weekend in Cincinnati. As a Bengals fan, I think they're just going to stop the Bengals. Bengals can't stop the run at all. So you see a team that was 0-2 and people saying, is John Harbaugh in trouble? Now all of a sudden they've evened their record, looked great doing so, and they've got what should be an easy opponent coming up next. Detroit Lions definitely trending up to me. Now, not a surprise that they're 3-1. Maybe it raised a few alarm bells when they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are another team that are trending up as well. But, they've got a bye this week, the Lions, after having a perfect game from Jared Goff, not a single incompletion. You might have some issues with their defense, mainly injury-driven. But I still look at that team, Robin, it's like, where do you stop them, right? You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, and if you stop Jahmyr Gibbs, you got David Montgomery, completely different kind of back. Jared Goff is surgical. He's got Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, I'm on last name Brown. Like they just have too many weapons. So I think they can get by winning on shootouts until they get a little healthier on defense. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, absolutely spectacular. Best rookie in the NFL by far. I know Marvin Harrison's come along, but the performance, the poise, the accuracy, plus, he's mobile. He hasn't even really had one of those Lamar Jackson go crazy escaping the pocket games yet. He's certainly capable of it. We saw that at LSU. They've won 3 in a row, and in those 3 games, they've only punted once. Now, the question for the Commanders is, every team catches fire, a little bit of juice. They've got a new coach in Dan Quinn. They play the Browns this week, who generally are pretty disappointing, and their offense is not good. But Jim Schwartz is a very good defensive coordinator, and it'll be interesting to see how Daniels handles a more complicated defense. If we look at the stock down, man, too many candidates to talk about here. But I'm going to start with the New Orleans Saints. They started off scoring 91 points in their first 2 games. Now they've scored an average of 16 in their last 2 losses. They haven't looked good. I know it was a heartbreaker losing to the Falcons the way they scored late, but the defense really collapsed and allowed the Falcons to move down the field for the game-winning field goal. And now they've faced those undefeated Chiefs. So in a division where everyone sort of thought it was up to grabs, will Atlanta be the good team? Is it the Falcons? Will Bryce Young come around? The Buccaneers might be running away with this. If the Saints don't win this weekend and lose 3 in a row, they're in trouble. Now let's get to the NFC East. The Eagles, 3 close games to start the season. They won 2 of those, lost 1. They got blown out by those Buccaneers. They need more of a pass rush. They're really banged up on offense, and both their receivers are hurt. And we can't talk about the NFC East without talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is a mess. They're signing guys off the street to play defensive line. Micah Parsons out, DeMarcus Lawrence looking like he could be out long term. They beat the Browns and the Giants, 2 not great teams, and they play the Steelers on Sunday, and then they play the Lions and the 49ers. Mike McCarthy's seat's got to be getting hotter and hotter, which brings us to Davante Adams that you talked about earlier, Rob. I find this era of media we're in so crazy. Now, Davante Adams makes a lot of money. He's 32 years old. The Raiders are a work in progress. But this whole Davante Adams is going to be traded is on the trading block came because Antonio Pierce liked an Instagram post that said they are going to trade Davante Adams now. By all accounts, the front office is listening and they are making calls. The Jets, obviously his connection with Rodgers, are interested. But the Cowboys and Eagles, of course, Harry Roseman, the GM for the Eagles, famous for making all sorts of moves, very shrewd. Davante Adams is really a one-year, an all-in type player. Cowboys are desperate, but I would suggest that they should be spending on defense if they want to go anywhere. Adding it, I mean, of course, if you're going to put Davante Adams opposite CeeDee Lamb, great. But how are you going to stop teams? That's their problem right now. If there's only, and then we'll finish up by saying if there's only one coach that's on a hotter seat than Mike McCarthy, it might be Doug Peterson and the Jags. That team doesn't get a ton of attention, but you think where they were 2 years ago, they roared back from a 27-0 halftime deficit against the Chargers and Justin Herbert. And then they lost by one score to the Chiefs, and everyone thought this is it. It's the Chargers renaissance. Lawrence is the guy. Trevor Lawrence is the guy. Well, now they're 0-4. They're playing a Colts team that's looking a lot better, and Joe Flacco came in for Anthony Richardson last week. If they go 0-5, I mean, their season's over for them, even though they're not in the strongest of it. I mean, Houston's a good team, but a lot of people thought the Jags might wrestle that title back in that division this year, and 0-5 is not a recipe for success for anyone, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the first coaching change.
Yeah, it really is a wild division. Just taking a look at it, every team except the Colts are a negative point differential right now, with the Texans leading the way at minus 15. So seemingly a lot is still up for grabs there in the AFC South. But as you mentioned, it should be interesting to see what happens there with Davante Adams as well. The recent reports from ESPN saying that the Jets and Saints are high on his wish list, as he would like to reportedly play with a quarterback that he knows. Of course, played for many years with Aaron Rodgers and is familiar with Derek Carr from his college days. So I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more in the weeks to come about Davante Adams and what happens there with him and the Raiders. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Paul Chapman, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.